Okay, should be able to see that.
Good to go.
Cool. All right. Hello, Boulder Ruby. My name is Taylor Phillips, he, him, currently a student in the Backend Engineering program at Turing, and we'll be giving a lightning talk today, as Dan had mentioned. It'll be on an open source project that I started called GitHub Buddy, which is currently running on Rails 6.1 and Ruby 3.0. The concept for this project is based around a user's stars and what happens when you star something. What is a star? I think everyone probably already knows what a star is or has seen it before. When you click the star in the upper right-hand corner, it adds to their count, but it also adds to your little list of stars. And you can find it by clicking on your drop-down profile and going to your stars. And it's really just kind of a long list of stuff, and there's about 30 of them per page, and if you get to the end, you will have to go on to the next page, which can be a little cumbersome when you're trying to, if you have a lot of stars like I do. You do have some filtering options, but you're kind of limited to just languages or a couple of the sorting options that they have. So what could be better? I think stars help portray a certain level of awareness surrounding a project. And a project with a lot of stars is probably pretty well known, and I would say that it's usually more likely to be maintained. Of course, that's not always true, but most of the time I think it is. For a user, there's probably only two reasons you would want to star a repo, and that's either to show appreciation for the project or to kind of use it as a bookmark, maybe both. For me, I star a lot of stuff to use as bookmarks so I can go back to it later. There's certain repos that their docs are kind of all just in the README even, so it's nice to be able to go back to those repositories easily, and I find it kind of hard sometimes. So that was the purpose of the application, and I am going to do a quick little demo here. I'm going to switch screens because I'm on Google Slides and I don't want to end the presentation. Okay, can you see my secondary screen now? Got it. So yeah, this is the welcome page. Of course, you need a GitHub account. So you're going to authenticate through GitHub. And then you're going to be asked to sync your account. This is kind of an expensive action, so it's going to take a couple of seconds. It's going to call out to the GitHub API and then create all of those records in my database based on the stars that you have. And once you get in, it's basically just a giant list of all the repositories that you've starred. I've starred quite a few. You can easily go back to them just by clicking on the link. And you could also just search through them at the top with the search bar up there, which is handy. The main feature though, like I said, is implementing a tagging system, which kind of lets you just sort through things easily. So for this one, I'll just add a Rails tag, and maybe I'll find another Rails related application down here, factory bot, Rails, that's test also. And we get kind of a little tag cloud up here, and that just lets us easily pick through those repositories that we have starred, or yeah. And you can also just go back to all repos. Untagged repos does what you would think it does, just all your untagged repos. And of course, if you want to remove a tag that you've made, you can easily just get rid of it. So the last feature that I added was a little latest release thing. I think ideally I would want this to be like some sort of like maybe Twitter style feed where it shows all the latest releases that you're interested in. But for here, you can just click on it and it pulls it in with the same like markdown format that you would find on GitHub. And again, it's just the same as it is on GitHub, just the latest release. So you can quickly browse to that. I find that's handy sometimes. So that's really the main functionality for the application. So let me switch back to my presentation here. Okay. Some of the technical challenges, a lot of the little stuff for me, like this being my first open source project that I've created, having to make separate OAuth apps for the development and production environments because each one needed a different callback URL for the local host versus the production. Managing dependencies and security issues. I really like the Dependabot feature on GitHub that alerted me to a CSRF vulnerability with the OmniAuth gem actually, which I was able to fix because of that, but would have had no idea otherwise. Managing, installing, configuring front-end packages. I did run into some weird issues with Webpacker in Rails 6. Specifically, it didn't seem to like Node 15, and it took me a while to figure that out. I had to downgrade to Node 14 to get it to work. I did do an upgrade from Rails 6 to 6.1. The application started on 6, and that actually did break one of my dependencies. I was using the Axis taggable gem, but after I did that upgrade, it seemed to break some of like the migrations and active record stuff that was in the Axis taggable gem. So I ended up just implementing the tagging system myself, and it wasn't terribly hard. And now I have one less dependency, which is always nice. Setting up GitHub Actions, setting up a domain name and DNS records, deployments, Heroku warnings, proc files, licenses, just kind of all of that stuff for me did become like a large part of the technical challenges. I think for the bigger stuff, just overall design decisions and the consequences of changing your mind, I would say, I would maybe rephrase that, the consequences of changing your mind after you've already started coding. What are you saving to the database versus making a call out to an API? And how do you keep the database in sync? ETL or extract, transform, load. I don't know that that would be truly what I'm doing, but the app does rely on a similar concept as far as taking data from GitHub's database, parsing through it, saving it to my own database in hopes of doing something cool or different with it. And how do we keep those databases in sync? I think that's probably a feature that still needs some improvement. Right now, as you saw, I'm just having a user manually sync their account. And it would be nice to implement some sort of job or background worker, maybe with Sidekick in the future. I think that would probably be a better or more elegant solution, but that's not a technology I've had the chance to explore yet. So my questions for everyone: is this something that could be useful? I was really hoping to use this as a gauge of like community interest for this. Are there missing features? Is this a feature that could be implemented on GitHub? What else could you do with the stars? Is there anything interesting that you could think of? Maybe like, I don't know, having suggested repositories or something like that based off what you've starred. And do I have too many stars? An important question that I have wondered lately after going through this. So that's everything from me. My contact information is there. You can find me on LinkedIn or GitHub /TapHill. I'm also in the Tech Friends and Turing Slack workspaces at Taylor Phillips, and I'm always willing to meet and communicate with new people. So please feel free to reach out, and you can find the source code on GitHub, TapHill, GitHub Buddy, and I'll actually go back to the questions page and take any questions.
I don't have a question per se, but I just want to say great job, Taylor. Really cool.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, Taylor, I'm coming off of mute. One of the things that do you have too many stars? I mean, that was one of my, I was like, wow, you must have a lot of stars. I think I just need to get more stars, and that's my problem.
From people I've talked to, it does seem to be like you either have a ton of them or you don't really have any of them. So yeah, I guess I'm in the latter boat there.
I mean, I think it's a great little project. I think it is, you know, I wouldn't try to sell this, right? Because it feels like it is more of a feature of GitHub than it is a standalone project. But I think it's super cool. I love the idea of doing recommendations because that's anytime you're getting user intent, being able to like say, hey, you're interested in projects X, Y, and Z, and you've tagged them with whatever the tag is, you might be interested in this other project. I think would be really, really fun and interesting. The syncing thing is interesting. One way to kind of like halfway do it would be just do it at every login. I don't know whether you can do that, but
Right.
building a whole separate thing, especially if you're kind of trying to like, it seems like you're doing mostly one directional sync. Is that correct? Caleb?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't fully know what you mean with one directional sync, to be honest with you. So if you could, I guess, clarify
Sure.
real quick.
If someone removes, someone like no action you take in GitHub Buddy is gonna get propagated back to your GitHub profile, right? Like
Correct,
you can't
correct. Yeah,
unstar something in GitHub Buddy and star it, and it gets unstarred in GitHub. So that's
yeah,
one.
that's correct.
Gotcha. Yep.
So yeah, that was like the biggest challenge, kind of how to handle that. So, and like I said, I don't know that I've necessarily come to the ideal solution yet, but for now, the manual syncing thing works. But the other issue is kind of like removing repositories. So if you delete something off of or remove a star on GitHub, then how is it going to update in GitHub Buddy? So that's something that, yeah, it still needs a little work in that respect.
I mean, one thing I always like to do is if you can't make it automatic because it takes a ton of work, is to give users kind of the manual sync button and just say, hey, press this button and it will copy everything over, including, and it will wipe out your current stuff, except for saving off the tags and stuff. But anyway, really cool project. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Taylor? I don't want to monopolize things.
Sure, quickly, Taylor. Great project, good exploration of features, and quite broad strokes of your touching. Another ideas to consider, and this is my personal pain that I've been trying to figure out how to deal with, is what happens when there are new releases of the projects that I'm interested in. Not necessarily in GitHub. I'm more interested in worldwide. People release updates to firmware. For example, my router, I never get that information as quickly as I need to. But within your context of the world, it would be interesting to say, notify me when a new release for a project that I just started is released, right? So there's a new release, a new project that new version of a project was released.
Right.
You could do a Slack integration where you Slack somebody's channel or whatever, just kind of, I'm shooting from hip here, but some sort of a way to say, I'd like to know, let me know when there's a new version of the software, because then I have to, or let me know when there is a breaking change in the software so that I remember to look into that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think the Slack integration would be really interesting to do. I know that you can like watch repositories on GitHub and you'll get like an email notification, but I don't really know how deep it goes beyond that. Like I think, like you were saying, the Slack thing, that could be potentially really cool.
Yeah, good work.
Thank you so much.
A quick question, Taylor. Awesome job on this. This is super impressive. I don't know where you found the time. Maybe I need to get more efficient in my studying. But you mentioned this is an open source project. Did you have other contributors that were helping you with this? And what was that process like?
I do not have any other contributors at the moment. It's kind of just been a solo effort up to this point to try and get it to like, I guess I would still I don't know if I would still consider this like a beta version, but it's very much just like the first iteration of things. So I have like, and I was hoping to use tonight, I guess, to see like community interest and gauge like if this is something I should like continue like working on and like pursuing based off of that. So I would like to get some contributors though, for sure.
I guess one question I have about that specifically, Taylor, is are you looking to monetize this? Are you looking for this to be a great like show, project to show to employers? Are you looking to like build a community around it? You just want other people to use it because you want to see that it's useful? Like what actually, when you say you want feedback, like what kind of feedback are you looking for?
Yeah, I think mostly just like, is it something that people could actually find useful? And like, for me, like this is a feature that I would really like if it was just integrated like natively into GitHub. So that's kind of like the main thing that like, I don't know, that maybe I was shooting for. Like, I just think that that would be really handy for myself and maybe other people. And that's what I was trying to gauge basically.
So two things. One, it's too bad Joel isn't here because he actually works for GitHub, but we'll send him the video. And then the second thing is, why doesn't anyone who could see signing up for this or using this give a thumbs up? And if you don't, you couldn't see using it, you don't use GitHub or whatnot, then don't. But that would give, you can then see the participants list, and you can see, I think you can see who gives a, can we see that?
Yeah, let me pull it up here.
Maybe you unscreen share, yeah. Yeah, you can click through the gallery and see.
Yeah,
That's
maybe about like a third of the people.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Just give you the feedback that you asked for.
cool.
Great. Any other questions for Taylor? I have a question, Taylor. If no one else has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How hard was this? How hard was it to put together this presentation?
How hard was it?
Yep.
It wasn't, I think the hardest part was just like thinking about the technical challenges and kind of trying to gather like my thoughts around all of those challenges. And especially just like all the little things, like I started making a list of like all the little things that I was doing. Like I was saying, for me personally, those ended up being like a big portion of my time spent. So yeah, that was probably the hardest part of getting the presentation together, just figuring out those talking points.
I don't know if you hear me, but I wanted to say great presentation. It was awesome.
Thank you, Chris.
Cool.